The 4D coaster, whether you like it, you hate it, or it's X2. Either way, the 4D coaster has been around for over 2 decades, and is one of the most unique coaster designs that have ever been built. If you're not familiar to what a 4D coaster is, it's when the seats on the car rotate front to back. The seats are on a 360-degree axis that allow them to spin while the car is in motion, going through a roller coaster course. This ride has been built by a few manufacturers, and currently only one is still building them today. So I want to see what is the future of the 4D coaster. Will it have a place with all these new modern coaster designs being built today, or will it be a relic of the past? Let's get straight into it and go straight to Magic Mountain when X was built. In 2001, X was built by Aerodynamics. This was when the company was just about to go bankrupt, actually. Aero has been a company that's been around for over 60 years. They had many coaster designs and many models built all around the world, but they began to fall short compared to B&M and Intamin, who were on the rise at that time and had newer models that were way better than older Aero coasters. So as a way to try to improve and move on with innovation, they built X. Unfortunately, with this inexperience building a prototype, X had many design flaws, so before the ride even opened, they had to reprofile the track, redo the cars because of weight problems, and of all these difficulties, the ride wouldn't open until 2002, but at this point, Aerodynamics went bankrupt because of this ride, because of how many problems they had trying to get it open, and with them going over budget, it led to Aero's bankruptcy. So once Aero went bankrupt, X still remained open and was the first ever 4D coaster. But that wouldn't be it. So when Aero went bankrupt, S&S bought every last aspect of Aero. They bought the rest of the company that was left. So when S&S acquired all their track designs and models, they decided to build Eejanaika in 2006. This is highly regarded as one of the best and most seeked out coasters in the world, considering the ride's almost 250 feet, and is way more modern than X was. So with X, they redesigned the car, they redesigned the track, and made the ride way more reliable and made it X2. So this new generation coaster seemed very promising. And with S&S redesigning all of Aero's faulty profiling, how come we didn't see more of this model of the 4D coaster? I mean, this is very revolutionary of how this thing is built. I mean, first of all, they have 4 sets of rails. 2 rails are made to help the car navigate throughout the roller coaster course. The other 2 rails control how the seats flip. So it's a controlled spin compared to some others I'm going to get to later. So if S&S who redesigned X2 and then they built the final coaster of this colossal size, Dinoconda at China Park's Dinosaur World. So this was the last one they ever built. But at the same time they were building some of these coasters, Intamin had a different idea of how to build a 4th dimension coaster. Debuting in 2007 was Inferno. Then they introduced Kirnu at Linimaki. So these were smaller 4th dimension coasters. They were mainly vertical, meaning they didn't have any turns, and the way how they rotated the seats front to back was way different than the Aero and S&S 4D coaster. So the Intamin Zack spins, they had a weight distribution. This way they had a different center of mass on the train, so the seats on the axis of rotation can rotate in different directions depending on weight variation. So they didn't have it controlled, it was more free spinning, but not as much. This ride would just kind of rock back and forth and occasionally flip upside down depending on how much weight was on each side of the train, considering they had people on the front and back of the car. So Intamin built some of these, but they only built 4. The 2 I mentioned of Kirnu and Inferno, they built Insane at Groenland, and then they built Green Lantern as the final one in 2011. The popularity of these weren't that big, they sold a few models. But the ones in Europe seemed to do well, compared to the Green Lantern at Magic Mountain, where it got shipped over to Loranda as V-Pair in 2020. But S&S had a better way to approach a cheap 4D free spin model. And with RMC introducing their track design in 2011 as the iBox track, they had the idea of the 4D free spin with a vertical layout with no turns, just like the Zack spin. This was way different than these other 4D free spins they developed with Aero. So far with these rides, you've only seen one kind of layout, pretty basic. What's different from these from the Zack spin is the fact that they have fins that help flip the seats, compared to the Intamin Zack spin, where it's hard to flip because most of the weight is coming from the train and it doesn't really depend on the weight on each side of the car from the passengers. And Intamin, yeah, they try to have a different version of their 4D free spin coaster. In 2016, we saw something at IAAPA for something that was very similar to the new S&S 4D free spins, but that didn't ever take off. So it seems that Intamin, they kind of stepped away from this market of the 4D coaster because their multi-launch coasters seem to be way more popular today, so they didn't really have the time to work with this kind of ride that wasn't as popular as it could have been. These new models of the 40 free spin coasters by S&S, they're not going to end. I mean, there've only been 8 built, and there's one going to China, and what I know about this, it's going to be a custom layout compared to the ones we've seen. I mean, we don't actually have any concept art or photos. In fact, we don't even have a name for it yet. All we know that this is going to be a custom 40 free spin by S&S as going to World Fairy Tale Land in China. So S&S is still working on these models, and they are selling really well, so there's going to be a large future for these models. But sadly, S&S's old models, based on Arrow's track designs from 2001, I don't think we're going to see these anymore. I mean, the last one was built in 2012, and we've seen better response with their second generation 40 coaster. They're more affordable, they're not as expensive or big as these ones, and they're more reliable. I mean, S&S, they've had a lot to work on from Arrow's mistakes on their first one with X, now X2. I honestly don't know the uptime and downtime of Dinoconda Eejanaika. If you do, leave it in the comments below. But these rides, S&S just don't really seem to have the desire to build anymore, and parks don't have the desire to buy them anymore. I mean, there may be a reason for this. I mean, 2012, when Dinoconda was built, that was the same year S&S was bought by Sensei Technology. Now, these are the same people who own Vekoma, so it could be possible that Sensei had a different vision for S&S for how they want to proceed in the company. By that, I think they wanted the company to go into a new rhythm as a way to move forward and break away from old patterns, and wanted S&S to play to their strengths of what they're able to do. I mean, we've seen this with their new launch coasters that they've been developing all across the world. So their old 40 coasters got sidetracked, and their new ones are higher up on the market to buy. It may be sad to see the best 40 coaster ever built not be manufactured anymore, considering only 3 were ever built, and 2 were only ever built by S&S. But that's just the industry. It has to keep innovating, they have to keep moving on to the next best thing, and some things have to stay in the past because they may not be as effective today. And how rides have to meet parks' financial needs, and if parks are willing to buy. Plus, with S&S's new concepts of roller coasters coming out, like for one, the Axis coaster, how this is so similar to the 4D coaster, instead of going front to back, you're going to side on an axis frame. So considering we're seeing this could be the next Dinoconda, the next X2, the next Eejanaika. But in terms of the old 4D coasters that we saw, those are probably it, but it's great to see that we saw them in the first place. And hopefully these new Axis coasters that S&S is developing will be a worthy replacement to these kind of coasters. So looking at all the 40 free spin coasters that have been developed for over the last 20 years, we've seen the 3 best being built, and we may not see another. The Intamin Zaxpins may be a lost concept, considering there were only 4 built, and only 3 of them were considered somewhat okay, and the last one being built being a complete travesty. So the only 4D coaster that we'll probably ever see is a new S&S model, but that may be taken away if the Axis coaster is proven to be a way better model that parks really want to see in their lineup. But that's just my view on the 4D coaster, how we're probably only going to see the models that we've seen from 2015, and how the good ones from the past may never come back. Comment down below on what your favorite 4D coaster is, and remember, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please hit it now. Keep watching Great American Coasters, and I'll see you all next time.